Hello, my name is Sarabjit. The celestial physicians have asked me to tell my story. It might sound a little bit like science fiction to you, but I assure you that it's real. I am a yoga teacher and I am a Sikh. Sikhism is a religion from India. And as a yoga teacher, I have a spiritual teacher, and I have had a very high caliber spiritual teacher who has taught me many things. I started to practice yoga when I was 14 years old, and I acquired my spiritual teacher when I was about 16 years old. So I have been living a vegetarian lifestyle for many years and a spiritual lifestyle for many years. My spiritual teacher talked to us a lot about the age of Aquarius, and he was preparing us to be able to manifest the age of Aquarius and to be able to change the consciousness of people so that we could all function in the age of Aquarius. I'm talking about more than 40 years ago. And now we are in 2017, and for me that time long awaited for is finally here, the age of Aquarius. So as a yoga teacher, I have been trained to follow a discipline. I have been trained to obey a spiritual teacher. Because my spiritual teacher was a very high caliber spiritual teacher, I'm able to, how can I say this? I'm able to recognize what a valid spiritual teaching is. In 1979, my spiritual teacher sent me to Spain. I'm American. He sent me to Spain so that I could spread the teachings of the yoga that I practice in Spain, and so that I could start to change the consciousness of the Spaniards through the teachings of the yoga that I practice. So I have been living in Spain for a very long time, and while in Spain I have met many people, and I have been able to also meet many healers. During my yoga practice, I was also practicing the type of healing proper of the yoga that I do, and at one point I put myself to the test for that to see if I could heal, and the test failed. And so then and there I decided that I didn't want to heal, that I was going to leave healing. I was not going to study healing anymore. And when I made that decision, and I made that decision in my heart, I didn't tell anyone about this decision that I had made, not even my husband. 1 or 2 weeks later, I received a phone call from a lady who, at that time, she didn't tell me that she was a medium or a channeler, and she wanted me to give a yoga class at her association, and she finally lured me to her association place. And when I was there with my husband teaching them a yoga seminar, after the seminar she told me that she wasn't interested in yoga, that she was a channeler, and that these celestial beings had told her that she needed to contact me. And of course I didn't believe her at first, and she said that they told her that we had to heal together, that they were healers there in her association. And of course I didn't believe that either, but she insisted. And I just left it at that. I left her place and went back home. And that same week she came and knocked on my door, and she insisted that we had to heal together. And since she was insisting so much, I told her, well, if these beings insist so much, why don't you ask them how we can do that? Because I thought that she knew a system of healing, I knew another system of healing, and I wasn't into healing anymore. So right then and there, she started to channel these beings, and the first thing that they said to me was, you cannot leave healing. And of course I was shocked. How did these beings, whoever they were, knew that I had decided to leave healing? And I told them that I couldn't heal. It was proven. I put myself to the test. It was proven I could not heal. And they told me not to worry, that they would teach me, and that my mission in this incarnation was to teach yoga, was to follow this very great spiritual teacher that I had. And I had already done that mission, and that my other mission in life was to heal, and that I should start to heal. And since I told them that I really couldn't do it because I had tried and I was a failure at it, they said that they would teach me, and that my training would begin in 3 days' time. So since I did want to heal very deeply in my heart, I decided to take up the offer. I didn't know who these beings were, but they sounded very authentic to me, and they were very loving, and I could recognize that they were also high caliber spiritual beings. So I agreed. And on the third day, I was walking down the stairs of my apartment with my briefcase in hand to go and give a class. And in the middle of walking down the stairs, I suddenly felt this great tiredness fall over me. I felt so tired and so weak that I had to drop my briefcase because I just didn't have the strength to hold it. And I had to climb back up the stairs, crawling on my hands and knees, because I didn't have the strength to be on my feet. I got into bed and I thought, oh my God, I'm really going to get sick. But that same night and the same day and the next day, I didn't have the symptoms of a cold or flu. I just felt very, very tired. I had to cancel all of my appointments during those days. And on the third day, this woman channeler called me, and I told her that I didn't know what was happening to me. I wasn't sick, but that I felt very bad. And she started to channel. And these beings told me that my training had begun. Of course, I didn't understand anything. Like a training? Aren't you going to give me books to read or courses to assist? And what they explained to me was that they were opening my healing channels in my body. They were working on me energetically. And then I started to have a lot of other symptoms, like my hands would heat up, they would swell up. I felt so much heat in my hands that I couldn't even wash my hair with hot water. That was too hot for me. I couldn't wear rings or anything metallic on my hands because the sun hitting the metal would would cause burns on my hands. And anywhere I went where there was water, aquariums or ponds or bathrooms, I would run to those places and I would stick my hands in there because I just had to get rid of the heat that I felt in my hands. Headaches and neck aches and shoulder and arm aches. And this lasted, I think I had these symptoms on and off for about a year. And sometimes it was so bad that I had to wear a, not a cast, but like a handkerchief over, especially my left arm, because it just hurt as if I had broken it. My husband started to have the same symptoms also, and they said that they were training us to be astral surgeons. They asked us to give up 2 years of our life because supposedly there was a catastrophe that was going to happen on Earth, and they were going to need surgeons who could operate on the battlefield without a hospital, without anesthesia, just out in the street. And there would be many, many people who would need surgery. And so they were training us to perform this type of healing or surgery in a very, very quick manner. Normally healing sessions last about 45 minutes, 1 hour if you go to a healing session. But our healing and our astral surgery is 3 minutes and it's done. 5 minutes is very, very long. And that's what they were training us for. It was myself. I was to be the first one to be trained because I could hold my attention longer, because I was pure. Of course, I had been practicing yoga for many, many years. And then my husband, and then the medium or the channeler. And so they also put us to a test, through various tests, to see if we really wanted to heal. And the first test that they put me through was that they said I had to leave my job and dedicate myself to healing 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And because I had this training of obedience to a spiritual master, I did it. I left my job and I started to heal with this channeler, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then my husband had to leave his job also so that he could heal 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then the second test was that we had to leave the place where we were living, which was a palace in Madrid, a very big palace in Madrid. And we went to go live close to the channeler, which was in the mountains of Madrid. And when we got there, we hadn't seen the place before, but we got there and it was a shack. So that was very shocking for me. But my training led me to that, and it was like they would give orders and I would say, yes, sir, and that was it. So for 2 years, we left our yoga teaching to dedicate all of our time and our resources to our training in healing. And they asked us to train healers, and they asked us also to create the celestial healing circle, where we would have many healers come together and create a circle around the patients or the people who wanted to receive the healing. So we were healing in groups. And it was a very marvelous experience. People from all over Spain would come to participate as healers and also receive the healing sessions. It was a very marvelous time for me. It was absolutely amazing. And these physicians, I asked them who they were, and they told me to call them the 5 celestial physicians. They would talk to us through this channeler, and they're very loving, they're very beautiful beings. Their mission is a humanitarian mission. The only thing that they want to do is to help us regain harmony within ourselves, help us get rid of all the diseases that we have, change our mental patterns that take us into being sick, and to be able to live a more harmonious and loving life. And after the 2 years, when we realized that there was no catastrophe happening, my husband and I had, of course, we had used up all of our economic resources. And the channeler who was working with us was not paying attention to the instructions that the celestial physicians were giving her. So at some point, we noticed that she was not channeling the celestial physicians. So we decided to leave it until further notice. We left. We had nothing. We had no money. We didn't have a house to live in. We didn't have our yoga center. And we had to have people loan us money so we could open up a yoga center and rebuild our yoga clientele to be able to live from that. And then a few years afterwards, another channeler came and knocked on my door and said that he had a message for me. And I was so excited. I thought that it was going to be the celestial physicians. And I said, sure, come in, please, channel for us. And he went into a trance, and he started to channel this being who I could recognize was also a very high-level spiritual being. And this being asked us if we wanted to help humanity. And of course, my husband and I looked at each other and said, well, that's what we do. We do it through yoga. We have done it through healing. What else do we need to do? And so he was so wonderful. This being was so wonderful. He recruited us again. And I asked him who he was. I asked him to identify himself. And he said that he was Metatron. And I had no idea who Metatron was. And when he said his name, my husband and I started laughing because we thought, God, what a ridiculous name, Metatron. And after the channeling session was over and he recruited us, we looked up the name Metatron in internet, and of course we found out that he was the prince of archangels. And then through this other channeler, I was able to speak with a great variety of beings who are helping humanity in this transition from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. I was able to speak to the Intergalactic Confederation, the commander Ashtar Sharan, all of the Ascended Masters, the archangels, the angels, all those beings who are helping us make this transition. And their message was that we have to get the message out to humanity that humanity needs to raise their vibrational frequency, and that we have to take that next step in evolution, and that they were there to help us. So at that time I was working for them, and every Friday I would have a channeling session with these wonderful, marvelous beings. I worked for them for 2 years. I had translated books for them. I had these books published for them in different languages. And I just learned so much. And everything that I learned from them was what my spiritual teacher, my yogic spiritual teacher, was teaching us. But I had a greater understanding of what he was teaching us through what these beings were explaining to me. Because these beings are orchestrating the whole change of era. So they would give me many, many details of the things that were going to come and how we humans had to change and how to make that change. So I worked for this channeler for 2 years, my husband and I, and it was very amazing and it was very wonderful. And then that also didn't work out very well, and I left him also. I also thought that I had learned sufficient, that the messages were starting to become redundant, and that this channeler had to do his own thing with his wife, and I had to go back to teaching yoga. It also coincided that my spiritual teacher had died, and so those who had studied with him, who were direct disciples, we were more in demand. So I had to travel more, and I couldn't do both things. I couldn't teach the yogic seminars and do the workshops with this channeler. So I decided to leave the channeler, and some years went by, and I continued with the Celestial Healing Circle, because I thought that humanity, the whole economic crisis started and people were very, very depressed. So I restarted the Celestial Healing Circle. And after a few years of holding the Celestial Healing Circle, one of the girls that came to my yoga training is a sensitive girl, and she said that she hears voices, and the voices told her that she had to do the teacher training with me. And so she did the teacher training with me. And I told her, well, since you're a Reiki healer, and why don't you come and experience the Celestial Healing Circle? And she came, and she just flipped. She flipped with what she saw in the healing circle, and she just couldn't believe the wonderful angelic beings that were healing with us, because she could see them. And she couldn't believe the high vibrational atmosphere of the healing circle. And so she kept coming to the healing circle. And after a while, I thought, oh my God, she obviously wants to learn this. So she came and she did the course with us. And then I thought I should probably ask her if she wants to start a healing circle in Barcelona, because she was in Barcelona and I'm in Madrid. And when she left, the next time she came back, she said to me, after the last healing circle, these beings followed me, and they told me that they had been watching me, and they told her to speak to me, and that she wanted to open a healing circle in Barcelona. And that's exactly what I wanted to propose to her. But I felt too embarrassed to propose it to her, because she might think that, I don't know, that I was too forward. And it was like, wow. And so she started the healing circle in Barcelona. And at one point, I had to spend a week at her house, because I had gone to give a course in Barcelona on one weekend. Then I had to go back on the next weekend, and she said, why don't you just stay at my house? And so I did. I stayed for that week. And of course, she asked me to give her a healing session. So I gave her a healing session. and she opened her mouth and she started to channel. She was shaking. This is the first time that she had channeled. She was shaking, and the words that came out of her mouth was from a commander in one of the motherships who told me that it was time again, it was once more time for me to take up my mission in healing. And he gave me instructions, and he said that I had to organize an association, and that I had to train healers, and that they were going to work with me more closely, and they were giving me 2 channels so that they could channel instructions to me. And these 2 channels were this girl who was speaking, who was channeling, and my husband. Curiously enough, this was in September. Curiously enough, in the summer, my husband was coming up to me and saying, I'm channeling the elementals and the fairies on the land that we have. And of course I didn't believe it. And I just said, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. And then this girl who didn't know anything about, what my husband was saying to me during the summer says that he's going to be one of the channels for me. So I have these 2 channels working with me who channel the celestial physicians. And this commander was also telling me that the land that we have in Spain is not my land, that my husband and I pay for it, but it's not ours, it's theirs, for their projects, for their humanitarian projects. And I couldn't believe my ears, because I thought, why do I have this land that takes up all my money, a lot of my time? And I would say to my husband, why don't we sell it? Why don't we sell it? And we had bought it because we wanted to build a community there. We wanted to build a spiritual community there. And now these beings come and they tell me that it's theirs. And I agreed.